Let's show you some pictures. Glial cells in the brain. Notice they're joined by tentacles and they're quite a long way apart, and everything in between these cells is cranial C. It's water with glucose and salt in it. This is a ventricle. The only difference is this is exactly the same fluid, there's just no cells in it. So our brain is an aqueous environment, and there's far more fluid. There's 9 times more fluid than there is brain cells. So that's what it looks like in the brain. I can take these off. And in the spine. These are these things here, they make the myelin sheath. They're called myelinating glial cells. As they come into the nerves, they actually join together and they make capillaries. So the cranial C can flow around them and down through the nerve, and they can join together and they make capillaries for the cranial C to also flow down through the nerves. Here they are in the nerves. See, these are much shorter than they are in real life. They're 100 times as long and as they're wide, so it will go off kind of out the room and outside and further. They're much longer than this, and the cranial C can travel down through these, and these joints, there's thousands of tentacles, which makes the surface area much bigger, so it can go through the joints and carry on. This is a bit like the lymph capillaries, but as to carry cranial C off down through the nerves. And there's a big difference if you think of the cranial sheath as, rather than a sheath, but as capillaries that carries water. The whole visualization of it is a very different thing. Have a cross section of a myelinating glial cell. This is the axon in the middle that's carrying the current. This is the cell, and it coils around, but every coil there's more cranial C than there is actually the cell itself. So it creates these coils, and as the C goes down, it makes these spirals and vortexes as it goes down through the nerves. I'm not going to show too many pictures, but what I will do is put a whole collection of pictures together, and when I send you out the recordings, all of those pictures will be there so you can view it more better. I'm just going to give you an idea of it. This is the ventricles from the front. The brain comes out right around here, and you've got 2 lateral ventricles. This is the thalamus at the top of the brain stem, and then you've got a ventricle. These are just full of cranial C without any cells. Then you've got a ventricle here, and then it goes down the spine. So they're just spaces full of cranial C. Here's some sideways going down the nerves of the myelinating glial cells, kind of capillaries carrying cranial C down through the nerves. I painted these pictures just for you. Doesn't show this in the books. I spent all this time painting pictures for you. You should be happy. What else we got? Here's one with the brain from the side. So this is the cerebrum. This is the thalamus. You've got the ventricles, the lateral ventricles around them. You've got the cerebellum at the back, the pons here, the 4th ventricle there, and then it goes all down the spine. But it's all fluid. It's all cranial C with cells doing this in it. All right, so we are going to drop into the cranial sea as before. And then we're going to work with the different glial cells. And these cells here, can you see these cells? These are called astrocyte cells. They're like little sea anemones. They've got loads of tentacles. And these, until fairly recently, until the last 30 or 40 years, the astrocyte cells were just thought of as connective tissue or fillers. We've got these fillers in our brain that didn't do anything. And Einstein, after he died, amazingly, he carried on teaching after he died, because they actually cut his head open because they wanted to see why he was so good at thinking. And they thought there would be lots more synapses or lots more neurons. But it wasn't. It was exactly the same as everything else. But what there was hugely more astrocyte cells. These cells that they just thought were connective tissue that held the whole brain together in this sea, because if they weren't be there, the brain would be sea as well. It would just be slushing around all over the place in the cranium. And they started investigating this, and they found that there was 20,000 times more communication going through the astrocyte cells than through the kind of nerve pathways and neurons through the whole brain, that the whole way they'd been viewing it was wrong. And that the neurons, you've got the nucleus of the neuron here. This is called the axon, and it produces a charge, and that goes off and connects to another one. You see the legs of another neuron somewhere else joining to this one, and that will go off and join to other ones and other ones. These communicate through telephone wires or through the axons, through the whole nervous system. And then, amazingly, I mean, this is incredible for me, where the nerves come out of the spine, there's one nucleus of the neuron there, and then the axon or the nerve fiber comes out, and that continues. So say it's kind of halfway down your spine, it comes into what's called the horse's tail. You can have a neuron that's like 4 feet long. It can come from the spinal cord down through the pelvis, down right to the big toe. You can have a cell that's so minuscule you can't see it, but it's 4 feet long. So these are telephone wires in a way, and there's many more connections here, and they come straighter and straighter, and then they just connecting out through the whole body. And these are like telephone wires transmitting these electrical charges or intelligence that we don't know how it works. The astrocyte cells, they communicate, but they're like cell phones. So you can get one astrocyte cell here, communicates to another astrocyte cell here, and the scientists have got no idea how they're communicating to each other, what they're doing to make the communication, what medium it's traveling through. But for me, this is a bit more spiritual or lateral thinking. And anyway, Einstein had loads more of those. When people have Alzheimer's disease, dementia, this kind of thing, it's not the neurons that are broken down. What's broken down is the astrocyte cells. So what was thought of fillers are massively important. So, but one thing, when you connect to these astrocyte cells through the whole brain, and we're going to do that in holographic breathing. First, we're going to be in the sea. Then we're going to connect to the astrocyte cells, which are only in the brain and the spinal cord. They don't continue down through the nerves. So it's just the central nervous system has all of these astrocyte cells that all connect together and hold the whole thing. So it's not just fluid. We will connect to those. The cranial sea doesn't hold the intellect. You don't really get an experience of the intellect when you're in the cranial sea. When you come into the astrocyte cells and knowledge and experience of the astrocyte cells, you also don't have an experience of the intellect. So we're going to be in that, and this connects to an energy circuit that we work with in the advanced webinars. The energy circuit that connects to the astrocyte cells and the connective tissue through the whole body is the yellow energy circuit. We'll be connecting to the astrocyte cells and we'll be connecting to the yellow circuit. And the yellow circuit, I'm not going to go into depth, but I'll give you a little idea. It includes the stomach, the spleen, the esophagus, the tongue, and the nose also, and the ethmoid, which is between the eyes in here. They all relate to this yellow energies. And we'll be connecting to the pelvic energy of the yellow energies as well, which in the men, it's the erectile tissue in the penis, and for the women, it's the clitoris. Oh, there it is. Oh, look, here we have clitoris. So not many people, I guess younger people know, but older generation, they don't always know what the clitoris, and I don't think many men know. So if you've got the pelvis here, like this is the pelvis, everyone. The clitoris, now this is a bit bigger than it should be. It fits in here like this. So, and the vagina here is where this finger is. So you've got the legs of the clitoris, the bulb, what do they call that? What do they call those? Anyway, you've got the whole clitoris as an organ there, and then this is the bit that normally sticks out a bit at the top there with the hood on it. Now, so that is the clitoris, and that is the sexual energy behind this yellow circuit. It travels up, it gives that all energy, and it will open up an energy through the astrocyte cells. For the men, it's the erectile tissue of the penis. Now, quite often men are aware of this bit sticking out, but it does the same thing as the clitoris. It comes in here, and behind the ball sack, the legs carry on down towards the sit bones on each side. The tissue and the urethra go inside there, but you get the legs of the penis in the same shape as the clitoris. So, and in this energy, to feel that basic energy that's going to rise in the body, really good for the men to become aware of the erectile tissue in that area. So we're going to work into the astrocyte cells. We're going to connect it to some, I can't go into depth, but we'll connect it to some energy points. And the kundalini, that base sexual energy for that circuit, is the clitoris for the women, and it's the erectile tissue in the penis for the men. So I don't know how far we're going to get into this. It may have to go over several webinars. Then after that, now the astrocyte cells are relating to the yellow circuit. The cranial sea is relating to the lung circuit, which is the lungs, it is the colon, and the other two organs are the rectum and the brainstem in that circuit. And they breathe with the cranial sea. It's the sides of the cranium, and there are two large sinuses here which are like the lungs for the face. So we're going to connect. Now, you don't have to remember all of this because I will just mention them, and as long as you're vaguely in that area, you can see that opening up through the cranial sea. So we'll go into the cranial sea to start off with, this time as the lung circuit. Then after a while, we're going to drop into the astrocyte cells, and you'll feel the energy change, and you'll feel it more connecting to the connective tissue through the whole body, and the tongue maybe and the nose are just mention points, and you may feel it opening up through a different circuit. Then if we get time, we'll drop into the neurons. The neurons open a different circuit. They've got a very different energy, and they represent the intellect. You'll start feeling the quality of your own intellect when you drop in to the neurons and the axons from the neurons and that whole pathway that opens up through the body. This connects to the blue energy circuit, which is the adrenals, the kidneys, the bladder, the urethra, and the vagina for the women, and the soft tissue of the penis for the men. So you've got the erectile tissue in the penis, which is the yellow energies, and then where the urethra is and the flesh around the urethra, where you pee through, that is this blue energy. So it's the urethra in the penis and the flesh around it. And the women, that's much easier because the clitoris is separate from the vagina, whereas in the men it's all together in one organ, so it's not so easy to work with. But if you go into the energies, you will feel it. Now, then after that, we're going to work into the myelinating glial cells, which are around the axons. Here you've got the neuron, the axon, and then the myelinating glial cells going through there. And in the nerves, you've got the myelinating glial cells, and then you've got the axon, one long axon from the from the spine, right out to your fingertips or whatever. Incredible. One cell traveling through your whole body. They're around the axon, and because they've got so much cranial C in them, they are a bit the blue energies, but actually they're more like a communication between the axons and the neurons and yourself. So it's kind of a higher quality of the lung energy circuit. How far we get through that meditation, I got no idea. I've got a feeling we're not going to get very far, and I'm going to have to do this over several webinars because we will spend 4 weeks or 4 Sundays just doing the yellow energies, and then 4 Sundays just doing the blue energies. So we go into it in much more depth in the advanced webinars on Sunday, and everybody can come to those. We're just going to touch on to that. There's a lot of information there. We will, I don't know how far we'll go, but I'll just do it at a pace that feels okay. If you want to go into that in depth, just register for the normal Sunday webinars we do. I don't want to give any more information. I just want to do it in a general way. And whatever people's experience is, it's fine. Have your own experience. But I want to bring you to a place where you see it as its constituent parts, which are the cranial C, which is 90% of it, and the cells, which are a lesser part of it, and the cells are full of water as well. All right, but whatever you experience is fine. It may be different to, I'm going to take my headphones off now, may be different to what I'm describing. Go with whatever you're feeling. So we do need to go into the meditation now. All right, closing your eyes. Let me check that I've done that correctly. Okay. Closing your eyes and dropping into the holographic breathing. Notice, just dropping into the holographic breathing. Notice how easy it starts. The lips are relaxed and closed. The tongue is on the roof of the mouth. On the in-breath, the jaw gently opens, and on the out-breath, the jaw gently closes. Breathing with the whole body. Being aware of the throat and the neck breathing. Letting the neck and the cervical spine, the vertebrae in the neck, let that relax and breathe. Breathing with the arms and legs. Notice the arms and legs opening and closing with the breath. And the hands and feet opening and closing with the breath. The lips are relaxed and closed, the tongue is relaxed on the roof of the mouth, the jaw just gently floating open and closed with the breath. And start feeling this sideways motion of the breath. And the in-breath, the jaw, the cranium, sides of the body opening out on the in-breath. The out-breath relaxing back in medially towards the middle. And with this sideways breath, being able to feel inside your cranium. It's a fluid environment, the cells are spread out. And you may feel it as a fluid, or you may feel it as an energy. Whatever you feel is fine. But notice it's spacious and that you can move through it. There's space between the cells. And it travels down through the spine. It travels out through the nerves. Notice how you get a sense of relaxation as it travels out through the nerves, starts to ground, and also as it's traveling out through the nerves, it gives a way for the brain and central nervous system to detox. It's a bit like you're feeling the cranial lymph. All of the toxins and toxic energies can release from the brain and out through the nerves, and then those toxins come out of the nerves finally and into the lymph, and then back to the heart, and then are just taken out of the body through the normal elimination routes. But it gives a way for your brain to offload. As this cranial sea, or this energy, starts flowing off down through the nerves. You may feel your spine releasing. You may feel all these rivers flowing off down through your arms and legs and through the organs, releasing. And get this just lovely feeling of energy or fluid traveling out through your body. Noticing how nice that feels. You feel that connecting to the earth, out through your arms and legs, hands and feet. So the cranial sea relates to the lungs, or to the lung circuit. And you're breathing with the cranial sea. You may feel that it's easier for the lungs to open and close. So the lungs in the face are like big maxillary sinuses either side of the nasal passageways. And the lungs for the cranium are more like the sides of the cranium. And the lungs for the abdomen is the colon. It rises up one side, across the top of the abdomen and down the other side. This circuit relates to the cranial sea. And feel the depth of the breath when you allow the cranial sea to breathe. And the other organs this relates to is the rectum and the pons, and as you drop into the rectum you may feel an energy releasing from the rectum up through the cranial sea in the spine, up through the cranial sea, through the brain stem and through the whole brain. This is the kundalini for the cranial sea. Gently breathing with the holographic breathing. Being aware of the cranial sea. And just letting the potency from the rectum and the area of the rectum release up through the cranial sea in the spine, through the cranial sea or energies of the brain. And this will invigorate the cranial sea, or the energies through the whole brain. Notice how easy your lungs breathe with the cranial sea. Just letting that release, letting that pulse through your brain. Feel a release in the rectum, and you feel a release through the whole brain and through the cranial sea in the brain, or energies of the brain. Being aware of the brain, spinal cord, the whole cranial sea, all the glial cells breathing. So we're going to go slower than I thought we'd go, because I can feel this kind of releasing a lot of karma. So we're just going to go nice and slowly, letting that release however it feels to release. You may feel a charge or an energy release from the rectum, through the spine, through the brain stem and through the brain. And feel your whole breathing through the lungs and through the cranial sea as that happens. Okay. And we're just going to drift from the cranial sea into the astrocyte cells. These are all of those sea anemone type cells. They're the connective tissue through the whole brain. And these breathe. They have muscles within them. And they create the inner, they're not just connective tissue for the brain, they breathe, they open and close with the breath. They're the connective tissue, but they also have an intelligence. And they're the highest level of connective tissue through the whole body. And there's quite a strong connection coming from the astrocyte cells through the top of the head. That even they're not of the intellect, but they have a strong connection to the higher self. And they have an intelligence which is not of the intellect. It's kind of a divine intelligence. So it's quite a strong opening from the astrocyte cells into the higher energies, just allowing that. You've got the energy that moves through the cranial sea, but there's this different energy, this different channel that drops down through the astrocyte cells. And right down through the spinal cord. The astrocytes don't carry on down through the nerves, but there is connective tissue. There's very soft, fine fibers that spread off through the nerves. They're not the astrocyte cells, but there's a fine connective tissue that spreads out through the nerves. And the dura, the membrane around the whole central nervous system, this is connective tissue, and the tentorium, which divides the brain laterally, and the falx that divides it vertically, they're connective tissue. So from this higher connective tissue, it starts working out through the meninges of the brain, down through the nerves, and through the fascia of the whole body, through the tendons, the cartilages, the diaphragms. So it's got this divine connection through the top of the head. The cranial sea flows out. The energies of the astrocyte cells connects out through in a physical way, through the whole connective tissue that spreads out around the cells through the whole body. You've got this divine connection through the top of the head. Notice they don't think, but they are intelligent in another way. They are intelligent. So to connect to your connective tissue through the whole body, allowing your astrocyte cells to breathe and allow that energy to come through them, and allow that spreads out through the diaphragms, through the fascia, which spreads through the whole body. It's connective tissue that joins everything to everything, fed by this divine consciousness coming down into these sea anemone type cells floating in the cranial sea. And it does spread off down through the nerves, but through the connective tissue in the nerves. Noticing that spread out through your whole body, and through the arms and legs and the hands and feet. And a lot of connections from the yellow energy circuit. You may feel a connection to the tongue. Connecting to that, or through the nose. And the top of the nose, the bridge of the nose. The ethmoid between the eyes. It's a kind of energy points for that circuit. And the nose and the ethmoid have erectile tissue in them, which is kind of a is connective tissue but erects. And feeling the erectile tissue in the penis, especially in the groin and in the clitoris. It spreads out through the pelvic floor there. And this connective tissue gives that potency, so you can have the divine energies coming down. And you can have the potency from the clitoris and the erectile tissue in the penis. It also is the coccyx, is part of that. That rises up through the connective tissue, through the spine and the astrocyte cells in the spine, through the astrocyte cells in the brain. The astrocyte cells are through the whole brain. Notice this quality of intelligence, but it's not a thinking intelligence, it's a pure intelligence. And it connects from the astrocyte cells up through the crown chakra and into the beyond. So the energies travel both ways, and you can feel the connection to the earth through your feet, and also the earth kundalini from the hands and feet, traveling up through the connective tissue, and then through the astrocyte cells, which are the connective tissue for the central nervous system, through the whole of the brain. They fill out every part of the brain, has the intelligence of the astrocyte cells, and then to the higher self. And you may feel a potency feeding that circuit from the erectile tissue of the penis and the clitoris, and also around the coccyx area. Gently breathing with the holographic breathing as all the erectile tissue and fascia through your whole body starts to melt with the energy. Through every organ there's fascia, there's connective tissue. Through every part of you, it connects everything to everything. And an energy runs through it, different qualities, through the different organs, different levels, through the different areas of the body. But it all connects together into this divine intelligence of the astrocyte cells, floating in the cranial sea and connecting to the divine intelligence in the subtle realms. You may feel this melting through your spinal cord and through your spine. All the connective tissue and discs between the vertebrae all start melting and healing. It also relates a lot to the stomach and the spleen. The spleen is directly back from the stomach, under the back ribs on the left-hand side. It's part of this circuit that relates to those energies. You may feel a connection from the spleen to the spine and the kundalini in the spine. It from the spleen to the erectile tissue of the penis or to the erectile tissue of the clitoris. And this rises through the coccyx, through the spine, letting your spleen release. And then you can feel all of those little astrocyte cells coming to life as that energy travels through the connective tissue in the spine and in the brain. These astrocyte cells that have intelligence and have divine consciousness from the higher realms traveling through them. This is what Einstein had a lot of. Einstein had a lot of astrocyte cells. Letting that melt between your shoulder blades. We're not going to go much further than the astrocyte cells, it seems. We'll just be with this. We'll do the rest in different webinars. Just letting that whole system melt. And through the whole face, around the whole cranium, every joint, every membrane is fascia and connective tissue, and it all talks between each other, all connects to the beyond, all connects to the earth, and has the potency of the clitoris and the erectile tissue of the penis as a driving energy through it. Especially through the cervical vertebrae. Seems to be a lot happening there. Let all of those tiny tendons and discs melt in your neck. Allow your throat to relax. The throat trachea is made of cartilage. All the bronchial tubes are made of cartilage, allowing, get the trachea, your esophagus, the lungs, the bronchial tubes, let these melt. A lot of karma in the neck and throat at the minute. And as that goes, you may feel a strong release from the genitalia, the clitoris and penis. There we go, let that release. And that released right up through the front of your body. Through the whole trachea and the esophagus. Let that melt, let that energy go through there. This will heal your lungs. This will move up through the face and join this central intelligence of the astrocyte cells and its spiritual connection. Really making that connection, allowing that activation from the spiritual through your whole body, from the astrocyte cells. Breathe. Let that heal through and through. Definitely relax your neck. Let that energy burn through your neck. So we're going to come back in a couple of minutes, just breathing with that. Breathing with the holographic breathing. Breathing with that. Letting that calm down. Okay, so we didn't really get as far as I thought we were going to go. It just was much more powerful than I thought it was going to be. We'll have to do this in stages. Gently breathing. And sending a thank you to the earth, and a thank you to the higher self and beneficial energies. And letting the energies go off for love and healing to the earth, for love and healing to the higher self, for love and healing to the beneficial energies, and allowing yourself to be loved and healed, and allowing the energies to go out to all sentient beings for love and healing. You are a sentient being, allowing yourself to be loved and healed. And when you feel ready, gently allowing yourself to come back.